Hello, everyone. Tonight we are stepping barefoot into a jungle that hums like a choir with its mouth closed. The trees here are taller than your fears. The air smells like wet stone and blooming rot, and somewhere above an owl you can't see is watching you not breathe. You've entered a part of the world where the wind doesn't blow. It glides and the leaves well. They never stop swaying, not because of a breeze, but because the trees are listening. And if you're quiet enough, if you don't blink too loudly, you might just catch the tail end of something ancient rehearsing its next move. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And tell me, what time is it and where are you listening from? Drop it in the comments. I want to know who's walking with me tonight. Now turn off the lights. Maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You shuffle along a narrow path that might just be a dry stream bed or might be a spine of something much, much older. The jungle doesn't offer explanations, it offers chances. And this one. This path leads to a clearing you didn't mean to find. It opens like a mouth into a space where the light is soft, like it passed through centuries before touching your skin. The air tastes of stone fruit and lightning. You take a step forward and the ferns tilt not away from your body, but as if bowing towards something behind you. You turn. There's nothing, just trees that curve like ribs forming a broken cage around the grove. And here you notice the leaves. They're always moving, not swaying like they're caught in a breeze. No, they move like actors taking cues. Each frond lifts, rotates, then pauses. A moment later, another leaf dips in what can only be described as polite agreement. None of them twitch randomly. It's all too choreographed. And here's the unsettling bit: you're not the audience. You're in the way. You crouch, pretending to tie your boot and glance at the canopy. The owls haven't shown themselves yet, but they're watching. You feel it in your hair, in the way the hairs behind your ears refuse to lie flat. The forest is leaning in. This grove is ancient. You see signs, bone-white stones worn smooth not by water, but by repeated footfall arranged in semicircles like tiny theaters without actors. You see claw marks, not scratched in anger, but carved delicately repeating patterns, all pointing to the center of the clearing, except there's nothing in the center. Just a patch of moss where the ground is unnaturally flat, as if something stood there, something heavy, something that waits between centuries. Here's your first historical fact of the evening. In parts of Southeast Asia, ancient stone circles exist deep in jungle terrain. Some of them predate agriculture. No one knows who built them or why. Archaeologists can't agree whether they were celestial markers, burial grounds, or ritual stages. Some suspect they were never meant for human use. Odd fact: baboons in captivity given access to music begin to develop rhythm, not just reactions, but synchronization. And yet no one's ever taught an owl to dance, at least no one alive. You sit down cross-legged on the cold stone. You want to test a theory. You exhale slowly, then clap your hands once. Nothing. But about 5 heartbeats later, a single leaf flutters down in a spiral. It lands on your knee and doesn't move again. Around you, the leaves return to their rhythm, but it's changed. They're slower now, matching your breath. Your breath is the metronome. A thought you don't want to have rises anyway. Have I already joined the performance? From far above a hoot. It's so soft you think your ears invented it, like a dream you heard from the inside. But it's real, and it doesn't echo. That's the part that bothers you. Sound should bounce in a place like this. Instead, it lands like a feather on the moss and stays there. You remember something about ancient Roman theaters? How they used architectural tricks to make sound travel focus. It amplify it. Stone curves, whispering walls, acoustic funnels. This grove feels like the inverse, a whisper trap. Sound doesn't escape, it's consumed. Historians still debate whether early human rituals involved mimicry of animal behavior or if the reverse ever occurred. Animals mimicking human rhythm. There's even an obscure Sumerian clay tablet that refers to feathered ones in the moonlight dance. Most think it's metaphor. You're starting to disagree. A branch creaks. You glance up, but nothing moves. Then you see it. One owl, motionless, larger than you expected. Too large, actually. You've seen barn owls before, but this one's not just out of proportion, it's wrong. Its wings are too long, folded behind its back like a cloak. Its eyes are shut. Yet you know it's staring at you. You look away, and in that half second it shifts, just a quarter turn of its head. You look back, eyes still closed, still facing you. You try a whisper. What are you doing? Nothing. Another leaf turns on its stem. And here's the part that makes your bones feel too tight for your skin. The owl's shadow doesn't match its body. The moonlight cuts it clearly, and yet the shadow beneath it twitches. It lifts a foot just once, like it's marking time. Then stillness again. You look back to the center of the grove. That patch of moss is darker now. No, deeper. And even though your legs are stiff and your back aches from sitting too long, you get the overwhelming urge to bow. Not kneel, not crouch, but bow the way dancers do at the end of a performance. You don't. Yet. Because you're not sure who's watching anymore, or worse, who's teaching. You stand up slowly, your knees popping like badly timed percussion. The owl doesn't flinch. Neither do the leaves. But something shifts in the jungle air, like someone just turned a page you weren't supposed to read. You're no longer in a space waiting to perform, you're in a space mid-performance. And you're standing on the stage with your lines missing. A low, slow rumble rolls through the canopy, not thunder, not wind. Just a vibration, the kind of tremor that belongs to something moving far away but watching very, very closely. You squint toward the trees, the ones shaped like bowed ribs. And there it is again, that hoot. Softer this time. If a feather made noise while thinking about falling, that's what it would sound like. You shuffle backwards, avoiding the center patch now, as if it has declared itself sacred. The owl doesn't move, but something in you does. A nerve, maybe. A gut feeling trying to pull rank. Then the thunder comes. Not the poetic kind. Real guttural, sky-tearing thunder. It punches through the trees with so much force the moss lifts off the stone in a ripple. But here's the thing. The owl doesn't blink. Not once. You stare at it, bracing instinctively. The rain is coming. You can feel the electric ions in your teeth. But that owl, it just stands there, still as glass, unimpressed. This isn't a bird trying to avoid detection. It's something that doesn't need to care. You know that look. It's the same one cats give vacuums. Mild contempt with no fear backing it. You inch closer just to see if the eyes are real. They're still shut. How long can an owl keep its eyes closed and still keep track of your heartbeat? A gust of wind slams through the grove, sharp and wet. Branches overhead whip and groan like ancient door hinges. A few trees lean too far, creaking like they're remembering how to fall. But the owl, nothing. Not even a feather out of place. And here's your historical fact of the night. The great horned owl is known for perching through storms unmoved by weather that drives other birds to seek shelter. Its feathers are layered so intricately it can sit in rain without getting drenched. And its hearing acute enough to pinpoint a vole under a foot of snow from 30 meters away. Your odd fact. There's a species of frog in the Amazon that uses the sound of thunder to time its mating calls. No joke. It treats lightning like a metronome. Nature's got more choreography than Broadway. Historians still debate whether the persistent thunder owl motif found in pre-Mesoamerican cave art refers to a deity, a spirit animal, or a warning. The imagery repeats a bird in a storm surrounded by concentric circles. Some think it was a symbol of protection. Others suspect it was a mark of places where storms would not touch the ground. Places like this. The rain hits now. Big drops, warm and forceful, smacking leaves like wet applause. You instinctively duck under a thick fern, the kind that feels like it has lived through empires. But you keep watching that owl. Still dry. Not a drip clings to it. You step out again, arms up, rain soaking your sleeves in seconds. But in the center of the grove, that bird is untouched. It's not even trying. The rain curves around it like it's part of the choreography, like the weather received a memo that said, "Don't touch the dancer." It opens its eyes, slowly, silently. They are golden, not the cartoon kind, not the emoji kind. More like melted topaz that's seen too much and forgiven even more. Your legs go a little numb. Part of you wants to bow again. A much smaller, more reasonable part wants to run. But your feet have opinions too, and they've decided you're staying right here. Then from the edge of the grove, another owl, smaller. No, not smaller, farther. Same eyes, same posture, same impossible stillness. It's on a twisted branch so fragile it shouldn't hold its weight, but somehow does. They don't hoot, they look, and one of them tilts its head just slightly, and you hear the hoot. Not with your ears, with your bones. It's soft, not spooky, more like a cue. You realize this isn't about fear. It never was. The jungle isn't threatening you. It's watching to see if you'll remember something. A move, a step, a gesture lost in the folds of evolution. Because, let's be real, if you came from creatures who once swung from trees and mimicked sound to survive, who's to say rhythm isn't in your bones too? You try something dumb. You raise your left arm just slightly, not as a wave, but more like a lift. A third owl appears. You didn't blink. You know you didn't blink. But there it is now, perched upside down from a branch that wasn't there 2 seconds ago. Watching. You freeze. And that's when you hear it. Not hooting, not thunder. Drums. No source. Just a beat, low and earthy, like it's being played under the roots of the jungle. The rhythm is slow, unhurried. Ancient. You're not meant to dance to it. Not yet. You're meant to listen. Memorize. Feel it in your souls. Because in this grove, you're not the witness. You're the one being taught. And the teachers. They don't blink. You wake up on your feet. Which is weird because you don't remember falling asleep. But here you are, slightly swaying arms loose at your sides like you've just stepped off a carousel that only exists in dreams. The rain has stopped. Or maybe it never actually started. The moss beneath your boots is dry again, even though your sleeves are still soaked. Time, it seems, doesn't fully agree with itself here. The owls are gone, but the clearing remains, the trees still curved like ribs, the mossy stage still untouched in its center, and just ahead of you, something you're sure wasn't there before, a nest. It's large. Too large for any bird you know. Made of branches, yes, but not broken ones. These twigs are carved, shaved down like the handles of old tools. Interlocked, woven not with panic or instinct, but intention. And in the center of this oversized cradle lies something worse than an egg bones. You step closer, slowly, carefully, the way you'd approach an unattended violin in the middle of a battlefield. These aren't ordinary remains. They're arranged not in a haphazard pile, but in a spiral. A deliberate spiral. Long, thin bones curled inward like a question being asked very, very politely. The center empty. You crouch down and see something etched into one of the bones. Not words, at least, not ones you'd recognize. Just a series of notches evenly spaced. Rhythmic. Like a metronome recorded in calcium. Here's your historical fact. Certain pre-Columbian tribes in the Amazon used bones as musical instruments, not just flutes, but percussion tools carved with grooves to create friction rhythms. Archaeologists found entire burial sites where bones were arranged in geometric patterns that didn't align with known funeral customs. Theories range from religious rituals to encoded messages in rhythm. And the odd fact: some spider species drum on leaves to attract mates, creating syncopated patterns specific to their species. Sound in the jungle is more language than light. Historians still debate whether some Neolithic human settlements were designed not just for protection or proximity to water, but for acoustics. There's evidence of dwellings in the Orkney Islands where whispers carry across stone walls with eerie precision, leading some to suspect that these weren't houses, they were instruments. Back to the spiral. Your fingers hover just above one of the rib-like bones. Not touching. You're not ready for whatever promise that might trigger. But you can feel it, a faint warmth, or maybe it's vibration. The spiral isn't just a shape, it's a memory, a ritual, a dance someone forgot how to finish. You glance up. The branches overhead have shifted, not dramatically, just enough to catch your attention. They're now bent slightly inward toward the nest, as if curious or protective. You take a slow breath and realize you've been holding tension in your jaw for so long, it now aches. You let it go, and with it the jungle exhales too. A breeze moves through, not a cold one, but warm and circular, like breath from a mouth too large to see. There's something buried under the nest. You can feel it before you see it. You kneel, brushing aside the moss near the outer curve of the spiral. The soil is soft, shockingly soft, as if recently disturbed. You dig gently, expecting, hoping, even for something you can name, but what you find is worse. Another feather, longer than your forearm. Not colorful, just a dull charcoal gray, with a hint of shimmer like rainwater over soot. And heavy. Heavier than any feather should be. It lies in your palm like a leaden thought, refusing to drift, to lift, to behave like a bird part should. You hold it up. It doesn't move, not even when the wind circles again. You glance around, still no owls, but the nest has changed. The bones have rearranged. The spiral is tightening, almost imperceptibly, like watching a clock where the hands move only when you blink. But you're not blinking, not now. Your arms are cold, your chest warmer, the kind of cold that comes not from air but from awareness. You know without knowing how that this nest isn't for eggs. It's for steps. You trace your eyes along the spiral and realize the spacing between bones matches your stride. The pattern isn't decorative, it's instructive. A walking path, a dance. Suddenly, the feather becomes too heavy to hold. Not physically, emotionally. You place it back on the moss with a kind of care usually reserved for sleeping infants or loaded weapons. Then you step forward. 1 foot, just one. The moss beneath your boot compresses with a softness that feels ceremonial. The bones do not move, but they seem to expect you. Another step. You're tracing the spiral now. Slowly, reverently, like you've just remembered this isn't your first time doing this. And then, just as your left foot touches the innermost ring of the spiral, the jungle stops. Not quiet, stops. The trees stop rustling, the ferns stop swaying. Even your own breath slows down, like it's unsure whether it's allowed to keep going. A silence so complete it feels handmade. And then, because of course the hoot, soft, behind you, you turn your head slightly. Nothing. But the spiral has opened. What was once a closed loop now leads into the forest, a tunnel of bowed branches and leafless air. An invitation. Or a test. You don't move. Because sometimes the smartest move is to wait until the choreography tells you when. You don't step forward. Not yet. You stand at the edge of that newly opened spiral like someone who's just been handed a key to a door they're not sure they're ready to unlock. The air in the tunnel ahead is still and dry, like the jungle's holding its breath on your behalf. The leaves don't rustle here. The branches don't creak. And from where you're standing, you can't even hear your own heartbeat. But the footprints, those you do hear, it's subtle at first. Not sound, really more like suggestion. Like your ears are trying to fill in something your eyes insist must be happening. On the moss ahead, pressed lightly into the surface like shadows that forgot to fade, are footprints. Bare, clawed, splayed wide. Some deep, some shallow. Some too big to belong to any modern owl, and some too dainty to belong to anything you trust. You step forward at the end, just one boot print beside one of the spiral bones. The moss gives, and as soon as your weight settles, you hear it, a soft hush like leaves brushing silk. You glance up. A branch twitches. And then, all at once, the spiral path closes behind you. The bones don't move, but the moss does. It knits itself back into place, covering the track, like the jungle is rewrapping a gift you weren't supposed to unwrap in the first place. Well, too late for that now. So you walk. The tunnel of branches overhead thickens, then loosens, then thickens again, like breathing. And on either side of the mossy path, you begin to notice the footprints aren't all recent. Some are fossilized. Perfect impressions turn to stone embedded in sunken patches of earth, not preserved by accident, arranged, like someone or something was keeping a record. You kneel beside one. It's unmistakably avian. 3 forward toes, 1 back, long and slender. You look down at your boot, then back at the fossil. The shape isn't just familiar, it matches. Not the size maybe, but the form. You suddenly feel like you've stepped into your own echo. Here's your historical fact. Paleontologists in China uncovered fossilized trackways of ancient birds that seem to circle, pause, and repeat, indicating not simple movement, but possible mating dances or territorial displays. The precision of the steps, the rhythmic looping hints at behavior far more choreographed than once believed. And the odd fact, flamingos can sleep while standing on one leg because of a passive locking mechanism in their knees. If you try it, you'll fall over. They do it without thinking. Balance isn't always a conscious act. Sometimes it's inherited. Historians still debate whether ancient shamans mimicked birds during ritual totems or whether the birds were mimicking humans back. One cave in central Brazil shows figures with elongated limbs and oversized eyes, etched beside owls mid-pose. Some scholars believe these weren't depictions of people worshipping animals, but of people learning from them. You keep walking, but your pace slows. The footprints ahead now form patterns. Not a trail, a dance floor. You're in another clearing, but this one isn't shaped like a stage. It's circular, yes, but with no center. The prints make loops, curves doubling back on themselves like a ribbon dropped in water. They move without endpoint, without direction. Like a ceremony rehearsed so long it forgot the reason why. You step among them, not carefully, respectfully. The prints are shallow, some faded, others crisp. They layer over one another like echoes stacked in a cathedral. You try to follow one path but keep being led astray, pulled into another loop, then another. You laugh once softly, and the sound vanishes instantly. Eaten by the air. Then it happens. The wind moves. No big gust, just a shift, a rearranging of the silence. And all the prints vanish. Gone. Just moss again, flat, green, innocent. You didn't blink. You didn't look away, but every single mark is gone. You exhale slowly, scanning the trees. That's when you realize the grove around you is not empty. There are faces in the trees. Not eyes, not animals. Faces. Carved, painted, etched. Mask-like. Dozens of them. Some half-formed. Some upside down. Some with bird-like features, others more human than you'd like. They're not watching you. They're watching the ground. Watching where the footprints were. One of them is smiling. Not carved that way, just smiling now. It wasn't before. You're sure of it. You back up a step and the moss gives a little crunch. You look down. One footprint, yours. The only one here. You've been erased from the dance. You're now the only trace, and the forest has started waiting. So you try something stupid again. You lift your foot and step right where you think one of the vanished prints used to be. And a leaf falls. Just one. Spinning. Slow. It lands precisely at your side. Then another step. This time you hear it. A click, like a stone striking bone. You pause. This isn't a trap, it's a test. You're being asked to remember a sequence written in footprints and vanished before you arrived. And somehow you're remembering it. You take another step. Then turn, then stop. Another leaf falls. The wind stirs. The masks on the trees don't change, but they approve. You've danced one step right. Only 3 to 147 to go. You don't know how long you've been moving. Time, as it turns out, doesn't wear a watch in the jungle. And whatever clock might exist here ticks according to leaf fall and owl hoots. Not seconds. You've been stepping, pausing, spinning slightly, stepping again. Sometimes your foot lands on moss that feels right, like a chord resolving. Sometimes it lands wrong, and the air around you goes cold with quiet disapproval. And then, the ferns part. Not all at once, not violently, just a gentle parting, like fingers spreading open after a long-held prayer. The plants shift without sound, their fronds sweeping to the side in a slow symmetrical arc. Not pushed by wind, there is none. Not brushed aside by animals, there are none. They move as if asked, and whatever did the asking, it wasn't you. This new corridor of green doesn't lead you forward. It curves left, and the moment you step into it, you feel your balance shift. The ground here is tilted ever so slightly, like the forest is offering you a suggestion instead of a demand. You follow. The ferns on either side lean just a little toward the path, like heads bowed in reverence. You feel like a very confused celebrity walking a mossy red carpet. No one told you were nominated for. The corridor narrows. The trees on either side grow closer together, their bark dark and ridged like wrinkles in old stone. The canopy above forms a vault arching so tightly that sunlight barely spills through. The light that does make it down is strange, thin, greenish flickering, like candlelight underwater. You reach out and brush a frond. It recoils. Not like it's afraid of you, more like it didn't want to be touched yet, like it hadn't cued your hand in its choreography. You mutter sorry, because frankly it feels like the right thing to say. Here's your historical fact. In ancient Balinese temple rituals, dancers often waited for environmental cues. Wind bird calls or even shifting sunlight before beginning movements. They believed the jungle itself had to agree to the performance. If the breeze didn't blow at the right moment, the dance paused, sometimes for hours. And your odd fact, Venus flytraps have a short-term memory. If you touch them once, they don't react. But touch them twice within 20 seconds and they snap shut. 2 triggers each subos action. 1 ignored. Nature has rhythm-based patience. Historians still debate whether certain forest structures found in the Congo Basin were ever actual living spaces or ceremonial walkways shaped by generations of passing animals and humans. Paths worn into the forest so deliberately they became permanent rituals. The corridor ends. You enter a clearing not wide like the first, but smaller, intimate. And here's what stops you. The ferns are arranged in a circle, a perfect circle, each frond angled slightly inward. Not flattened, not cut, just bent as if by hand. As if someone's been coming here every day for 1,000 years, coaxing the plants into compliance with nothing but patience and rhythm. In the center of the circle is a stone, flat, round, about the size of a manhole cover, but smooth, so smooth it reflects the dim green light above like a jungle mirror. It pulses. Not a metaphor, not your imagination. It pulses. A very faint vibration once every few seconds. You feel it through the soles of your boots. A quiet, distant thump like a heartbeat from under the earth. You kneel beside it. The surface is warm. Not hot, just warm enough to be alive. You place your hand on it and immediately feel the tempo change. A little faster now, not frenzied, just aware. Then you hear the hoot. This one is close. Close enough that you don't need to look, you feel it behind you. But you look anyway, and there it is. An owl, larger than the last ones. Taller than your hips, it stands at the edge of the fern ring, silent, unmoving, except for its feathers, which shimmer with each pulse of the stone. Its head doesn't tilt. Its eyes don't blink. You say nothing. It steps forward. One clawed foot at a time, it enters the circle. The ferns don't part this time. They shiver, not in fear, not in excitement, in respect. Every plant here knows it's witnessing something old, something important. The owl steps onto the stone. The pulse stops. Silence. You feel your own heart hesitate, unsure whether it's allowed to keep going. Then the owl raises one wing, just a fraction, and places its foot in the air, and begins to dance. It's not graceful, not slow, not flashy. It's precise. It steps, pauses, turns, steps again, a spiral, a loop, a diagonal twitch. The wings stay mostly down, flicking only to punctuate certain beats. The beak never opens. And every move the owl makes, the plants copy. The ferns ripple with the exact same rhythm. The vines above twitch in synchrony. Even the bark on the trees seems to darken and lighten with emotion. This is not a bird performing. This is a bird commanding. You watch, mesmerized. Then the owl stops. Dead center. Head tilts toward you. Just once. And it bows. Low, slow. You don't know what else to do, so you bow too. A little clumsy maybe, but heartfelt. And when you rise again, the owl is gone. The ferns have returned to stillness. The stone is no longer pulsing. But in the dirt just beside your boot is a fresh footprint. Not yours. And facing in your direction. The forest has learned your tempo, which means it's ready to teach you something harder. You're starting to notice the way your footsteps echo, not in sound, but in sensation. Each step you take now feels like it's already happened before. Like the ground has memorized you. The forest no longer responds to your presence with curiosity. It responds with expectation and maybe encouragement. You keep walking, led not by paths, but by the way light curls at the corners of leaves. Sometimes it pools on the ground like a spotlight. Other times it funnels up tree trunks as if whispering, "Look here, look now." You obey. Because everything else you thought you knew about jungles has folded itself into silence. Then you see it. A feather. It's just there floating, only not falling. You stop. It hovers midair, tilted slightly downward, trembling softly. Long, dark gray, identical to the one you unearthed from the spiral nest. But this one's suspended. No string, no breeze, no explanation. You hold out your hand and the feather drifts toward you. No rush, no drama. Just a slow, inevitable curve, like a sigh-given shape. You catch it. And it's heavy, heavier than the last one. It sinks your hand slightly toward the forest floor, and for a second you think you're imagining it. But no, your wrist actually aches a little. Your shoulder tightens. This feather doesn't want to be lifted. It wants to anchor. You hold it upright. It doesn't sway. Even with both hands, it refuses to align with gravity. It's as if the feather remembers a different direction for down than you do. Here's your historical fact. Archaeologists in Papua New Guinea found ceremonial feathers, giant cassowary quills used in rituals to mark status and passage. Some were so heavy they had to be worn horizontally across the back, never upright. The feathers weren't symbols of flight, but burdens meant to teach balance and submission to rhythm. And your odd fact, sloths can grow entire micro-ecosystems in their fur, including algae and tiny moths that only exist while the sloth is alive. So yes, an animal can carry a forest on its back. Historians still debate whether ancient dancers in Mesopotamian temple complexes were chosen for their beauty or their balance. Clay tablets mention those who do not fall as blessed. No mention of what happened to those who did fall. Maybe they became moss. Maybe worse, you turn the feather sideways. It glows, not like a flashlight. More like the faint shimmer of moonlight trapped in a jar. It hums too. A low vibration barely perceptible that resonates with something behind your eyes. And then it twitches. Not your hand to the feather. It lifts, pulls, like it's pointing. You let it lead. Each step you take while holding the feather makes the trees lean just a little, like the entire jungle is calibrating itself to your new tempo. You begin to notice a rhythm beneath your feet, subtle, soft, but there. 1, 2, pause. Step, pivot, step. It's not walking anymore. You're dancing again even if your brain hasn't agreed yet. You pass under a vine-draped arch, and immediately the air changes. Thicker, cooler. You smell moss stone and something sharp like citrus and old metal. The light dims further. Shadows stretch out ahead of you but not behind. That's when you see them. More feathers, dozens, floating in the air like snow caught in stasis, all at different angles, all unmoving. You pass through them like a ghost. None brush your skin. None touch the ground. And each time you take a step, one of them vanishes. You don't know where they go. You don't hear them drop. You don't see them flutter away. They just cease until only one is left. right at eye level. You raise your hand to touch it, but this one dives straight downward, and where it lands, the forest bends. Trees lean inward, vines recoil upward. Even the moss thins, revealing stone beneath. You step to where the feather touched, and find it resting atop a carved rock, circular again, but cracked in a perfect diagonal line. At its center, a bowl-like depression filled with clear water. You lean in, and finally you see an owl up close. But it's not in front of you. It's in the reflection. Golden eyes, closed wings, head tilted just slightly to the left. It's not your reflection. It's not behind you. It's beneath the surface, alive, moving. Its claws twitch once, then twice, then stop. You whisper, "What are you waiting for?" The owl blinks in the water. And you blink up here. Your eyes water instantly. Not from fear, from something older than fear. Recognition. That owl in the pool, it's not watching you. It's watching your feet. It's waiting for your next step. You back away. The feather on the rock rises again, slowly. Then explodes into dust. But not loud dust. Not smoky or blinding. Just a soft unraveling, like fabric giving up on being solid. It scatters upward and vanishes, leaving you in front of the stone. The bowl of water stills. Your hands are shaking, not from cold, not from exhaustion, from the weight of being chosen for something you don't understand yet. But the jungle does, and it's waiting for you to catch up. You sit down, not out of defeat, but because standing suddenly feels impolite. The jungle around you has done nothing but reveal itself inch by inch, breath by breath. And now it's your turn to go still. Your legs fold beneath you onto the moss, and the second your body settles, the ground responds. Not loudly, not visibly, but undeniably. A pulse. From below. It runs up your spine, not unpleasantly, like a slow drumbeat played by something buried deep in the roots. Something old. Something that doesn't move exactly but remembers movement. You look down at the cracked stone again where the feather had vanished. It's pulsing too. The rhythm is subtle. One beat every few seconds, then two close together, then pause. Thump. Thump, thump. Wait. It repeats. And that's when you notice the boulder. It's not even 10 feet away, half covered in moss and wrapped in vines like a gift that no one wanted to open. You probably wouldn't have noticed it at all if it weren't for the faintest flicker of movement across its surface. Like breath under skin. You rise and step closer. The boulder is pulsing. You place your palm on it. It's warm, no alive. Here's your historical fact. In the ruins of Chavin de Huántar, in Peru, archaeologists uncovered a network of stone ducts beneath ceremonial chambers designed to amplify sound from underground instruments. Visitors would stand above and feel vibrations through the floor, believing the gods were speaking from beneath. Odd fact. Elephants communicate with infrasound frequencies too low for humans to hear, but strong enough to travel through the ground. They can hear each other through their feet across miles. Their bones catch the pulse like drums. Historians still debate whether prehistoric stone altars found in dense jungle ruins were used for offerings or for something more musical. Some stones, when struck, ring like bells. Others vibrate only when the air itself hums. There are suggestions these singing stones were not built around worship but around resonance. The boulder here, it's humming, not loudly, not musically. More like a memory of a song that hasn't been sung yet. You lower your ear to it. It's rhythmic, steady, alive. You knock on it once softly and instantly feel foolish until the boulder answers. Not with sound, with motion. A tiny twitch beneath your hand, a confirmation. Yes, I'm listening. You sit back watching. The vines around it tighten then loosen, almost like breath. You think, is this the heart of the dance? Then, is this what the owls were moving to? Then, is this what I've been moving to without knowing? You pull back the moss on one side and find faint markings beneath carved grooves in the stone. Not decorative. They're shallow and spaced like notches. You recognize the pattern. You've seen it before. On the bone spiral in the nest. But this one's longer. The sequence is more complex, a full paragraph if bone could speak in drum beats. And now the beat is growing faster. Thump, 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 thump. The pulse synchronizes with your heartbeat. You know it's not your imagination because you try slowing your breath, and the boulder obliges. It listens. You speak softly. Why me? No reply, not in words. But a shadow moves above. You glance up, and there it is, an owl gliding overhead with no sound, wings stretched like curtains being drawn across the sky. It circles once, twice, then lands on a branch directly above the boulder. You lock eyes, no blinking, no shifting, just you and the owl. And in that moment, the boulder pulses again and the owl twitches. A slight movement of the left claw, a step. Then it moves again. A second footstep, then a pause. It turns. The owl is dancing, but it's not for you. It's for the stone. It's matching the pulse. One step for every thump. Turn on the pause, dip on the double beat, and you realize something awful. You're supposed to copy it. You try. You rise again and watch. One step forward. Pause. One step left. Turn. The owl does the same. Or did you do it first? Hard to tell now. The rhythm is blurring. Your body begins to move on instinct, like you've done this before in a different life. Or maybe in the bones. You finish the sequence and stop. So does the owl. The boulder pulses one final time and then goes still. The jungle falls silent. Utter, oppressive, absolute quiet. You look down. The vines on the boulder have turned inward, curling along the pulse lines like sleeping hands. And there where your foot last landed is a mark in the moss. Not your footprint. It's clawed. 3 toes forward, 1 back, just like the owl's. Except it glows, faintly, and it hums the same pulse. You step back and watch the light fade. Something was recorded. A rhythm remembered. You were the conductor, or maybe just the metronome. And now, the forest knows your beat. You sit again. Not because you're tired, but because you're beginning to understand that stillness is part of the choreography. That silence here is not emptiness. It's rehearsal. It's precision. And now, as the last tremble fades from the moss and the boulder lies quiet and cool beneath its vines, the entire jungle seems to pause with you. It's not quiet. No, not exactly. The cicadas are gone, yes. The frogs too. No dripping water, no crunch of leaves. But the silence here isn't absence. It's presence. Like the hush before a conductor lowers the baton. You sit cross-legged, hands resting on your knees. You try not to breathe too loudly. The owl above you remains perfectly still, save for the occasional micro-adjustment of a claw. It doesn't blink. You're not sure it ever will again. It's not watching you. It's watching your rhythm. You're beginning to feel like a tuning fork that hasn't realized it's been ringing for hours. Your eyes drift closed. And even with your eyelids shut, you see movement. Not vision, not hallucination. Memory. You see the spiral nest. You see your boots, your shadow, your missteps, and half-turns. You see the feather that floated, refused gravity, and then vanished in a soft sigh of dust. You see the boulder's heartbeat as color now, amber waves rolling beneath the stone. You see the owl stepping on your behalf, correcting the stutter in your motion. And then nothing. Stillness. The jungle has stopped even in memory. Here's your historical fact. The Eleusinian mysteries of ancient Greece included a segment of total silence in their secret rites. Thousands gathered in torch-lit halls only to wait in total breathless quiet. It was said that in that silence the gods spoke not in words but in knowing. And the odd fact, the lyrebird, one of the world's best mimics, has been recorded. Imitating chainsaws, camera shutters, car alarms, even human voices. But when no one's watching, it sings its own song. A different rhythm. Something no one's ever recorded. A private tune. Historians still debate whether ancient stone labyrinths in Scandinavia were used for ritual dances or walking meditations. Some believe they were built not to trap someone, but to train their steps to recalibrate the body through stillness and repetition until thought dissolved into muscle memory. Your eyes open slowly. Nothing has changed, but everything feels different. You stand, and again the air shifts. The moss underfoot holds your weight a moment longer than it should, as if reluctant to release you. The light through the trees softens further like a stage curtain beginning to lower, though you're still in the middle of something. You take a breath, and that's when you hear it. The whisper of an owl wing, not flapping, not beating, just folding, from behind you. You turn expecting to see one perched nearby, but there's nothing. No birds, no masks, just you and the silence. And yet you feel watched, but not in the way you used to. Not the prey feeling, not the creeping unease. This watching is different. This feels like rehearsal, like a coach standing behind a mirror nodding, approving. You walk to the center of the clearing again where your previous footprint glows faintly. It no longer hums, but it remains. Moss hasn't reclaimed it. The earth hasn't healed over it. And that more than anything tells you it's not your step anymore. It belongs to the jungle now. You plant your feet next to it and wait. Nothing happens, which of course is something. Stillness again. But you've learned enough by now to listen inside it. You close your eyes. This time there's no memory, no vision, just a beat. Inside your ribs, you try stepping forward once. Pause. Turn. Raise your arms slightly. And behind you a sound. Not an owl. Not a drum, a breath, a long one, like someone or something has been holding it for a very long time and is finally letting go. The wind stirs, the ferns lift their heads again, and in unison the entire grove exhales. You open your eyes, no movement, yet everything has shifted. It's hard to explain, but the trees are taller now. The air is warmer. You feel like you're inside the end of a sentence. You take another step. This time your foot makes no sound, no imprint. But above you, hidden in branches, something shifts, softly. A low rustle. And then, who? One note. Deliberate. Placed like punctuation at the end of a long paragraph. You smile. Just a little. You look up and say, thanks. The owl doesn't reply. Because honestly, it already has. You keep walking. Slowly now, not from hesitation, but from awareness. Every step you take carries weight not just from your body, but from meaning. You're no longer just someone lost in the jungle. You're someone the jungle knows. The trail in front of you doesn't look different. It still weaves between towering trunks and loops beneath strangler vines and fern curtains. But now, every branch that creaks, every leaf that leans feels timed. Like the forest has moved from freeform into choreography. And then you see it. Half buried in moss, partially exposed under a curtain of lichen, lies a skeleton. It isn't large, maybe the size of a child, but its proportions are off. Too long in the arms, too wide at the shoulders, the skull stretched slightly back as though it spent a lifetime watching the canopy. You approach slowly. The bones are arranged in a pose you can only describe as graceful. Knees turned outward, heels tucked in tight, one hand laid gently across the chest. The other rests palm up beside the skull. And the head, it's bowed. Not broken, not collapsed. Bowed, as though in mid-curtsy. You crouch beside it, and something in your stomach turns not in fear but in recognition. You've seen this posture before. You made it yourself, back in the spiral nest. That half-step, half-bow you stumbled into as the owl landed. You sit beside the fossil, quiet, respectful. You don't touch it, though every part of you itches to. Instead, you lean in and let your eyes trace the shape of each limb. And it hits you the position isn't one of death, it's one of rest. A rest rehearsed, like the final pose at the end of a dance. Here's your historical fact. In an Iron Age burial site in Siberia, archaeologists found remains arranged in seemingly intentional positions, not defensive, not collapsed, but posed. One woman had her hand extended upward, fingers curled mid-gesture. Some suspect they were frozen in ritual positions. Others argue it was artistic expression. Odd fact. Sea cucumbers, yes, really curl themselves into dramatic shapes while sleeping, mimicking the curves of their reef environment. It's not camouflage, it's body memory. They sleep in poses learned from stillness itself. Historians still debate whether certain burial customs involving seated skeletons were done post-mortem, or if the individuals died in ritual posture. Some of the most puzzling cases show no trauma, no struggle, just a pose, a final bow, a last line in a performance no one recorded. You glance around the grove. There are no other bones, no ruins, no tomb, just moss stone and trees that look away politely. You reach for a nearby vine just for balance and it tightens under your fingers like a hand returning a handshake. You freeze. The vine loosens, then releases. You exhale. Okay, you whisper, so everything's alive. No response. But the skeleton seems to agree. You stand again and walk a slow circle around it, half dreading that it might vanish when you look away. But it doesn't. It stays. Unmoving, but not forgotten. You start to leave, then pause. You bow. Not because you're being watched, though you are. Not because you're performing, though you are. You bow because it bowed first. And behind you, somewhere in the upper branches, an owl shifts. Just once. You hear its claws scrape wood. No wings, no hoot. Just a single step. It mirrors your bow, and you feel something pass between you and the forest, not power, not approval. Permission. You walk on. Not far. Another bend. Another curtain of vines. And then a second skeleton. This one different. Taller, bulkier, with wide hips and a twisted neck. The legs are folded beneath it like a bird at rest, but the arms are splayed upward. One broken, one whole. But it too is posed, like it fell into rhythm and never came out again. You kneel again, slower now. A pattern is forming. You look for footprints nearby, but none. No claw marks, no boots, no dance traced in the moss. But above, carved into the tree bark in shallow spirals, is a pattern. Repeated steps. 4 directions, 3 beats, 1 bow, and beneath it faint scratch marks, as if claws had etched it in. Not quickly, not in panic, in practice. The forest has memory, and it keeps it in bone. You look between the 2 skeletons, mapping the curve of their limbs. You begin to notice details you missed before: notches carved into femurs, grooves across collarbones. Not natural wear, not injury, intentional. Like someone wrote on them. Like someone used their body to record choreography. And suddenly, you realize something: they weren't just dancers, they were teachers. Each skeleton is a lesson. Each pose a phrase in the language of a movement too old for words. You rise again, and when you do, a breeze sweeps past, warm, spiraling like a sigh from the stone. And at your feet, a new feather. Balanced upright. It doesn't fall. It waits. You don't pick it up right away. The feather, standing straight, unmoving, gives off the quiet authority of something that doesn't want to be touched. Not yet. Not by hands that are still shaking, even if only a little. You let it be. Let it wait. After all, it seems to be very good at that. Instead, you circle it slowly. The way you might orbit a fire whose smoke tells stories. The feather's shaft gleams faintly in the dim light like polished obsidian etched with invisible writing. You crouch, breathing shallow, and only now realize it isn't planted in the ground. It's balanced. Perfectly. One soft breath could tip it over, but it doesn't move. Not even when the wind brushes your neck like a whisper from someone taller than the trees. And then just at the edge of your vision, movement. You snap your head to the left. Nothing. But when you look back, the feather is gone. Your heart drops, but you already know the pattern. You look up, and there it is. An owl, perched not on a branch but on air, hovering in a way that makes no physical sense, toes curled slightly, as if bracing on an invisible stage. Its wings are tight against its body, but the tips twitch in measured beats. It doesn't blink. It doesn't hoot. It waits. You lower your eyes for a heartbeat, and that's when you realize something that curls cold fingers around your spine. You've never actually seen them move. Not directly. Not full-on straightforward motion, only glances, only shadows, only the aftermath. They move when you aren't looking, and now you are. Staring, So it stares back. A long, wide moment stretches between you and this strange, hovering owl. And in that breathless space, something shifts in your perception. You feel watched, but not in a sinister way. More like a director in the wings, arms crossed, waiting for you to remember your cue. You look down at your feet. You move one. Nothing happens. Then the owl does the same. But you didn't see it move. You blinked. You know you blinked. And in that blink, it changed positions. Now it's facing the other way. Head turned, foot lifted mid-step. You blink again. It's in a different pose. You laugh under your breath because the choreography, it's not just movement, it's invisibility. The dance only happens between moments. When you're not looking, when you forget to pay attention. Here's your historical fact. Ancient rituals in pre-Hispanic Mexico often involved masked dancers performing sequences with deliberate pauses. But between movements, the dancers would leave the stage, re-enter, or reposition, never allowing the audience to witness the transition. The power they believed was in the in-between. Odd fact. There's a species of cephalopod that can change the texture of its skin in a flash, becoming bumpy smooth or ridged in milliseconds. But no one has filmed the exact moment of change. It happens faster than cameras can capture. A biological jump cut. Historians still debate whether certain indigenous North American ghost dances were designed to summon spirits or to become them. The transitions, the disappearing and reappearing movements often occurred during musical pauses. Many believe those gaps weren't absences, they were the real choreography. The owl blinks once. Its eyes flash gold, but not light. Memory. It's showing you something. A flicker. You close your own eyes not out of fear but to listen differently. You feel the movement in the air first. A pressure shift. A heat signature. Then a small woof like feathers brushing feathers. When you open your eyes again, it's closer. Now perched on a branch 3 feet above you. You didn't hear a wing beat. You didn't hear a leaf fall. It moved while the world blinked. You step backward, but something stops you. It isn't physical, it's ritual. You're not allowed to break the circle. You know this now. And so you raise your arms slightly, a mirrored gesture. The owl lowers one wing. Together you hold the pose. Then you blink. It's gone. But not really, because around you the shadows shift. Dozens of owls. Some perched on branches. Some hanging upside down like strange feathered bats. Some not visible at all but felt. And they all do the same thing. They freeze when you look at them. They move when you don't. It becomes a game. A slow creeping one. You glance left, nothing. You glance right, nothing. You blink, and a new owl is in front of you perched on a twisted branch. You blink again, it's mid-step caught in a move it wasn't ready to finish. Then a second owl appears in your peripheral vision. And another. The grove has become a stage not for performance but for precision, for timing. You realize what's happening now. You're being taught not just to move, but to miss, to feel the rhythm through absence. It's like listening to a song where only the rests remain. You stop moving. Completely. You close your eyes, and there it is. The dance. You don't see it. You feel it. Owls shifting silently around you, mimicking steps you haven't yet taken, anticipating movement you haven't made, choreographing you from the shadows. You lower your arms. Take one final step. The air presses in warm and feathered and then releases you. When you open your eyes, the grove is empty. The owls are gone. But behind you in the moss, footprints. Yours and theirs, dancing together. You step away from the footprints, slowly careful not to disturb the moss. The prints feel sacred now, etched in rhythm instead of dirt. Your steps no longer echo in your head like they used to. They land soft like punctuation after a quiet poem. You've stopped thinking of movement as travel. It's all communication now. Which is why the rain surprises you. It starts as a whisper like someone shushing you from above. Then a single drop lands on your shoulder. Warm, lazy. Another follows, and another. Then a full sheet, soft and steady, pouring through the trees like the jungle is melting gently onto itself. You expect to get drenched. You don't. Not a single drop touches you. You step into it just to check. Lean your arm past a vine curtain out into open air. The rain passes right by, never hitting skin, never soaking clothes. It curves around you. You look up. Owls. Dozens now, maybe more. They perch on branches so high they might as well be stars. Wings half open. Heads tilted. They don't flap. They don't hoot. They simply adjust just slightly with each gust of rain, as if guiding it. You take a cautious step forward. Still dry. Another. Still nothing. It's not luck. It's not canopy coverage. The owls are orchestrating the weather. And you are walking inside a dry pocket shaped by feathered silence. Here's your historical fact. In ancient Java, rain shamans were called pawang hujan. They didn't stop the rain, they redirected it. Through gestures and chants, they claimed to carve dry pathways through storms, allowing festivals and rituals to proceed untouched. Many of them worked in coordination with birds, releasing doves into the sky as guides for the weather. Odd fact, bees won't fly in the rain, not because of fear, but because a single raindrop relative to their body size is like being struck by a bowling ball. So when storms begin, bees dance in tight spirals inside their hives to keep warm and grounded, syncing with one another's body heat. Historians still debate whether ritual bird dances found in ancient Central African rock art depict spiritual performances or literal instructions for weather control. Some figures appear mid-pose beneath clear skies, while others wear masks shaped like owl faces standing in the rain untouched. You walk beneath this sculpted rainfall, marveling not at its absence but at its choreography. Every step you take seems allowed by the storm. The owls twitch slightly one by one in a cascade of invisible timing. You glance up and catch one mid-hover wing stretched into a pose that redirects the water around its body. And as it flutters for a single heartbeat, the rain shifts with it. You begin to wonder, are they dancing now? Not for you, not for show, but for function. A rain ballet, a geometry of dryness. You laugh under your breath. You taught the jungle how to shield itself from itself. A drop finally lands on your cheek. Warm. Direct, as if answering, we taught you too. You reach out with your hand again. This time the rain touches you, only the back of your hand, only briefly, and it's electric. Atus. Not literally, but something in the contact buzzes like memory passed through moisture. You're not supposed to stay completely dry. You're supposed to know the edge of protection, the boundary of dance, the space where intention becomes weather. You look around. Everything glistens. Leaves shine like mirrors. Vines quiver with weight. The world has become a wet painting of motion. And yet, beneath your boots, the moss stays dry, sacred. You crouch and touch it. It hums, just once. A soft vibration, not from the ground, from your bones. You realize now this isn't about owls at all. Not really. This is about the forest learning how to rehearse. The owls, they're instructors. But the performers, they're everything else. The vines, the moss, the wind, and occasionally you. The rain slackens, but the rhythm remains. You walk until the canopy thins. The light returns in golden shafts, turning raindrops into slow-falling stars. The owls follow now not directly, but by shifting branches behind you, like stagehands pulling ropes off-scene. You turn, once quickly, catch one in motion, just barely, wings extended, mid-pose. And in that second it smiles, or at least it feels like it smiles. Something in its stillness says, good. You bow your head, not deep, just enough to acknowledge, to say I saw that. The owl closes its eyes and disappears. The rain stops entirely now. You are no longer in a jungle clearing. You are on a stage without an audience. And the only applause is the drip, drip, drip of water leaving leaf tips behind you. The show isn't over, but intermission has begun. You pass through a stand of trees so ancient they no longer creak, they breathe. Their bark is thick, silvered, and patterned with striations that look suspiciously like fingerprints left by giants. The forest is quieter now, not because it's asleep, but because it's listening again, like a theater between acts. The owls are gone for now. But the trail they've left behind isn't made of feathers. It's made of faces. You see the first one buried half in soil beneath the roots of a strangler fig. Wooden weathered its eyes, almond-shaped and hollow, the expression neutral, neither kind nor cruel. Just waiting. Moss grows along the edges of its cheekbones, and dirt fills the space behind its teeth like an unspoken word. It's upside down, not accidentally, deliberately. You step closer. The mask is nestled face down beneath the surface like it was pressed there gently, reverently. And next to it, just under a curtain of fern leaves, another one. This one-rounder carved with deep-set eyes and a mouth puckered slightly open as if mid-whistle. Also upside down, also hidden. You crouch. The masks are everywhere now. Not hanging from trees, not displayed proudly. Buried. Some shallow, some deep. All positioned face first into the earth. The forest hasn't just grown around them, it has tucked them in. You reach to lift one just a little. The second your fingers touch the edge of the wooden brow, you feel it heat. Not fire, not pain. Memory. Like a sudden pulse of emotion from a language you don't speak, but still understand. You let go. You whisper, sorry. The mask stays still. The air grows warmer. You sit cross-legged beside it, hands in your lap. You've asked no permission. And the forest has no words for forgiveness, only temperature shifts and silence. It's enough. Here's your historical fact. In multiple regions of Central and West Africa, ceremonial masks were buried after their final use, never burned or discarded. The belief was that once worn during ritual, the mask retained memory, personality, and intent. Burying it face down protected the living from further contact. And the odd fact, elephants have been observed burying items they encounter that carry strong smells or associations, shoes, bones, even clothing. They press them into the dirt, cover them with leaves, and walk away. Some researchers believe it's a form of ritualized avoidance. Historians still debate whether the upside-down masks discovered in Siberian taiga graves were warnings or offerings. Some posit the inversion trapped spirits inside. Others say the faces were turned downward to teach the dead to look back into the world they came from. You run your fingers across the dirt, gently uncovering more. They don't form a pattern, but they do form a presence. Each face is unique. Some elongated with exaggerated brows. Some wide and geometric like animal skulls reimagined. One has no eye holes, just a jagged spiral carved where a face should be. That one makes your skin tingle. You leave it covered. You lean back and stare at the canopy, letting your body become still again. The masks beneath you feel like a crowd, not watching, listening. To you, or maybe to the steps you haven't taken yet. You wonder if each mask corresponds to a movement, a turn, a gesture, a mistake, a recovery. If this whole clearing is a choreography of buried memory, suddenly the ground shifts. Just slightly, you place your hands on the soil, nothing moves, but the moss rearranges, just a little. And beside your left foot, one mask tilts upward, still buried, revealing just a sliver of its mouth. You hear it then, a low hum, not from above, from below, as if the masks themselves are vibrating, or worse, breathing. You stand slowly. The air is thicker now, like walking through velvet. The scent of wet bark and something almost metallic fills your nose. It smells like wood that remembers fire. You back away. The hum stops. Silence returns. But the feeling does not leave. These are not masks meant to be worn. They're masks meant to be rehearsed through. You imagine a dancer moving above them. Steps precise, each pivot above a buried face, a conversation between skin and memory. Maybe that's what this all is. You haven't been learning to dance for the owls. You've been rehearsing for the ones beneath. You look to the nearest tree trunk and see it clearly. Now a spiral of faces carved up its bark, all upside down, mouths open, silent, each one mid-expression. You take a step. One mask tilts, another blink. It rights itself. You didn't touch it. You didn't even look at it directly, but it turned, as if listening to your ankle bones. As if your walk triggered memory. You're not walking through a forest anymore. You're walking through an archive. One that doesn't record words, only rhythms, only poses, only the moments just before you fall or bow or freeze mid-spin. The masks want something, not fear, not reverence. They want continuity. They want to see the dance again, and again, and again, until the jungle forgets it didn't invent it. You don't know how long you've been walking. The air is different now, thinner but charged, like you've climbed without realizing it, as if every step upward was disguised as a turn in the path. Your body feels light, but not in a joyful way. More like the world beneath you is letting go inch by inch. And then the sound comes back. A hoot, but it's unlike any you've heard. It's sharp, not harsh, but focused. Shorter than the others, almost clipped. You freeze and listen. Nothing follows. No second hoot. No echo. You wait. Still nothing. And now your skin is tingling again because something about that single sound feels final. Not a greeting, not a warning, a statement. You walk on. Soon you notice the forest floor is bare. No moss, no vines, just smooth stone covered in a fine dust, as if someone's been sweeping this area for centuries. Not to clean it, but to preserve it. That's when you start noticing the patterns. At first, it looks like random scratches. But the longer you follow the path, the clearer it becomes. These are not scratches. They're notations. Curved lines, branching marks, all etched with the same deliberate stroke. Some form spirals, others form what might be footprints. Clawed, three-toed. None repeat. You realize you're walking through a kind of script, not one you can read, but one your bones seem to recognize. And then once more that hoot, a single note. No follow-up. You stop, and something clicks in your head. None of the owls ever hoot twice. Not once since this began. You replay the sounds in your memory. Each call distinct. Each one like its own word, a single phrase. Never repeated. You whisper aloud. They don't echo. And then it hits you. They don't need to, because they're not talking to you. They're calling each other across time. And each hoot is irreversible, like a footprint in wet stone. A move that must never be danced again. Here's your historical fact. Ancient drummers in Aboriginal Australia were known to strike certain rhythms only once per ceremony. Never repeated. Each beat carried a memory, and to echo it was to disrespect the story it told. The rhythm was the record, not the performance. Odd fact. Certain parrots invent personal calls for their mates. Unique sounds they never use again, not even after their partner dies. It's a sonic signature that belongs to a single connection, then vanishes from the air forever. Historians still debate whether isolated musical phrases carved into Sumerian tablets were meant to be full songs or fragments. Some believe each notation was a single-use phrase danced or played once, then buried in ritual silence. You kneel down beside the nearest carving and place your hand on it. The dust shivers under your palm. You don't brush it away, that would be a kind of erasure. Instead, you whisper, "What did you say?" And something in the stone replies, not with sound, with weight. Suddenly, you're crying. You don't know why. Nothing has scared you. Nothing has touched you. But something has recognized you. And in that moment, you understand every owl hoot is a mark in the choreography. A cue never reused. A name spoken once. They aren't songs. They're steps. The hoots are the dance. You stand slowly and begin to walk again. And with every few steps, you hear another call. Short, soft, once. Then never again. But here's what changes: the calls begin to mirror you. You turn who. You stop who. You raise your hand who. You breathe differently. Who. Each time you act, the forest responds with a single hoot, as if recording your moves. Not judging, not praising, archiving. Your body is being written down, and suddenly the path ahead is flooded with light, not sunlight, moonlight. Pure full silver. It pours through a perfect hole in the canopy above, shaped like a circle. The air is clear, dry, and glowing, like it's been dusted with ash from a dream. You step into the moonlight, and now the stone beneath your feet is not blank. It's carved deep, elegant, long paths of lines and curves. but in the center there's an empty space. You stand in it without hesitation, and the forest waits. You move one arm. A hoot. Another arm. Another hoot. You bend your knee. Silence. You turn your foot inward. A low note, not a hoot, but a breath. You're being taught through response. A living language of motion. The forest is shaping your body into a question it wants to ask itself. And all around you faintly. Now the other hoots rise, not louder, not overlapping. One at a time. Spaced carefully. Irreplaceably. Each one a punctuation mark on your next step. You close your eyes and bow your head. You whisper, "None of you ever hoot twice." And just before you open your eyes again, silence. The next phrase is yours. You remain still. Not by choice anymore, but by gravity. The silence has thickened again, not in menace, but in meaning. You are now the only thing in this clearing not carved into stone. And you feel it. That low vibration again, rising up from beneath the soles of your feet, not like a warning, but like a stage being swept clean before the final act. The moonlight hasn't shifted. Not yet. It's holding steady above you like a spotlight, soft but unwavering. You stand within that circle of silver and begin to understand something unsettling. They've stopped hooting. The owls. All of them. The sounds that had shadowed you, marked each turn and breath and stumble, have gone completely silent. Not one call, not even a shuffle in the branches. Nothing. And then you feel it. Their eyes. Not the sensation of being watched, but chosen. As if 1,000 small suns have opened in the trees, their heat never touching you, their light never visible, but they're all the same. You don't know where they are, but you know exactly where they're looking. Straight at you. So you wait. Because now you understand the next move isn't yours to choose. It's theirs. The silence grows sharper, denser. It hums in your teeth. And then you hear it. Movement. Not above, not below. Behind. You turn. And for the first time, the owls break formation. They stand in a crescent along the far edge of the clearing. Some perched. Some on the ground. Others hanging upside down from vines, wings curled like question marks. Dozens, possibly hundreds, and they are all staring directly at you. No blinking, no turning away. You lift your hand slowly. None of them react. You lower it. Still nothing. You whisper, "What now?" And then, in perfect synchrony, every owl takes one step forward. You almost stumble. It's not a threat, it's a signal. They're breaking rhythm, just for you. They never do that. Every movement you've witnessed has been tight rehearsed and visible when watched. But now they've paused their ancient dance, and they're facing you. This isn't performance. This is recognition. They've seen what they needed to see, and they want to make sure you see something too. Here's your historical fact. Some Hopi ceremonial dances were never meant to be observed directly. Instead, they were performed behind veils or semi-transparent barriers, with dancers only revealing themselves in the final moment. This moment was referred to as the piercing of the veil, a symbolic acknowledgement of the observer's transformation. Odd fact. Certain chameleons don't just change color. They can subtly shimmer patterns in near-infrared when viewed through special lenses. These signals are invisible to the naked eye but can be seen by birds. Which means sometimes you're being watched in colors you'll never know exist. Historians still debate the purpose of massive animal-shaped geoglyphs in the Amazon rainforest, created by carving trenches into the forest floor. Some believe they were ceremonial spaces. Others argue they were visible only from above, meant for beings watching from the sky, not the ground. You take a step forward. The owls do not move. You take another. Still watching. A third. And now the closest owl blinks. Once, slowly. Then another steps forward. Then another. But this time they don't return to their perch. They surround you. And you are standing in the center of a growing circle of stillness. The moonlight tightens, becomes a narrow beam. And you suddenly remember you've never seen what happens when the dance ends. Because you thought there was no ending. Only spirals. Only rehearsal. Only repetition. But now they've stopped, and you're the only one moving. Your instinct is to kneel. Not to surrender, but to honor. You lower yourself, hands to your thighs, head bowed. The ground beneath you pulses once, a deep sonorous hum, and the air shifts. It doesn't grow louder, it doesn't brighten, it just changes, like the atmosphere has agreed to a decision you weren't part of. You raise your head slowly and find yourself staring at something new. In the center of the clearing now, where nothing stood before, is a tall, narrow stone, like a monolith, covered in feathers, not stuck on with sap, not glued or wedged, grown, layer upon layer of delicate, precise plumage. It sways gently even though there is no wind. It towers just above you, silent, pulsing softly, breathing in rhythm with the jungle. And across its surface, a spiral of notches, identical to those carved on bones. One for every hoot, one for every step, one for every you. You approach. The owls do not stop you. You lift your hand and touch the stone. It's warm, soft at first like down, then firm beneath like bone beneath skin. And suddenly, you remember everything. Every step you've taken, every breath you held, every mask you didn't uncover, every feather that refused to fall. They weren't separate events. They were chords in a single song. And now, you are the echo, the one the dance was building toward. The monolith hums louder, then stills, and the owls, they bow. Not dramatically, just a subtle universal gesture of completion. And all at once, they vanish. The trees hold their shape. The moon stays centered. But you are alone, not abandoned, graduated. And from now on, when you move, the jungle remembers. You don't move for a long time. There's no need. The monolith of feathers no longer pulses. It doesn't shimmer, it doesn't hum. It simply stands still, solid, quiet. Like it has always been here, like you only just remembered where to find it. The air is still heavy with the kind of silence that follows thunder. But it's not empty. It's thick with memory. And even though the owls are gone, their gaze seems imprinted into the trees like the shadow left behind after staring too long at the sun. The jungle watches even now, but not with eyes, with rhythm. You finally rise slow and careful, like pushing off from deep water. Your knees crack softly. Your legs feel stiff, not from exhaustion, but from reverence. Every part of your body is remembering where it was supposed to be all along. You step back from the monolith. It doesn't change. But something inside you shifts like a stone sliding perfectly into place. You walk around it once, hands by your side. You don't touch it again. Touching it twice feels unnecessary. As if the first contact was a beginning and an ending in one breath. Any more would just be noise. You begin to walk. The path is visible now. Not a trail exactly. Not a track pressed into the ground, but a flow. The trees have rearranged themselves gently, politely to guide your return. The light slants just right. The ferns no longer bow ahead of you. They simply part. Not to welcome you, not to challenge you. They make room. You're no longer a trespasser. You are part of the choreography, and for the first time, the jungle feels easy beneath your feet. You pass beneath twisted trees with bark like wrinkled skin. The ground softens again, the moss returning in velvet patches. The masks are gone now, or perhaps they've turned their faces away. Or perhaps they have never needed to face you again. One by one, the forest's sounds return. A rustle here. A bird call, not an owl. A real mundane bird. The sigh of wind through leaves. And with it comes a deep, unspoken understanding. You weren't meant to watch the owls. You were meant to become the memory they leave behind. Because the dance, it isn't just performance. It's how the jungle remembers things without words, without books, without maps or names or graves. The owls are not just dancers. They're archivists. And tonight, for reasons you'll never fully deserve or understand, they let you in. You pause at a bend in the path, recognizing a stone that was once just another stone. You see now it has grooves, not decorative, instructional. You missed them on the way in. You were still moving too much. Now you feel the stillness in your bones like a second pulse. You bow your head, just once, and as you rise again, something brushes your shoulder. Not feathers, not wind, but the idea of a wing. and a single sound echoes softly behind you. Who? But this time, it's your voice. It comes out of you without effort. Quiet, measured, final, and no second hoot follows, because none of them ever do. You step into the clearing where it all began, though. Now it feels like the beginning of something much older than you. The spiral is gone. The nest is gone. The heavy feather gone. Only moss remains. Moss and rhythm. You take one last look over your shoulder. The forest blinks, and you turn toward home. But not before leaving one final thing behind. Your footprints. You step carefully into the center of the clearing and plant your feet, one forward, one turned slightly out. The way they taught you. The way you were supposed to remember. Then you step back out of them, and you leave them there, pressed into memory, into moss, into rhythm. As a final phrase in a dance no one will ever see again. You entered the jungle as a stranger. You stumbled past the ferns, followed a hoot you couldn't explain, and crossed into a clearing that didn't want to be found. The leaves moved when there was no wind. The owls never blinked. And you slowly, awkwardly learned that you weren't just passing through. You were being shaped. Every step you took became part of a pattern. Every breath a test of timing. The jungle didn't offer explanations, it offered choreography. You followed the owls not with your eyes but with your bones. You listened to rhythms carved into stone, remembered by feathers too heavy to fall, by masks buried upside down, and whispers that never echoed. You moved through circles of silence, across the boulders that pulsed with memory, and into moonlit spaces where every footprint vanished behind you except the ones worth keeping. The owls hooted only once, each sound a wordless page in a book written without repetition. And finally, when they stopped, when they watched, you understood the terrible honor of stillness. You weren't chosen to dance. You were chosen to remember the dance. The forest was never performing for you. It was passing you the script. Now the owls are gone. But somewhere in the deepest part of the jungle where light and sound bow to rhythm, your final step remains. Not as a mark of conquest, not as a record of a travel, but as a soft note in a song that will never be sung again. A gesture, a breath, a movement between movements. And maybe years from now, when the moon is just right and the moss has grown back in a spiral, you don't remember planting, the owls will return. And they will dance the part you left behind.